Welcome to Talkin' Jets. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot. I have Mr. Dom C. Dom, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Rye. Happy to be here Monday night. Jets talk. What could be better?
Oh, man. Boys and girls, make sure you hit that like button on your way in if you haven't done so already. Make sure you subscribe and vote in our live chat poll question. We got a really important question tonight. Are you subscribed? Yes or no, but now I am. So you guys can vote on the live chat question. We're going to go over our 53-man roster predictions as well as scenarios and just thought processes, thought experiments as we go through this whole thing. We see a whole bunch of people in the chat. We got Jay-Z Jets, Flight Boys, Duncan, Rusty, Mark from Asbury Park, pork roll, egg and cheese time, no ketchup. Hey, Mark, no.
That'll be
Taylor ham, baby, Taylor ham.
Taylor, Mark.
What the heck? What
is wrong with you?
We got Greg in there, Frankie, Dylan. What's up, guys? Good to have you in here. All right, Dom, let's pull up our sheet without further ado because we got a 53-man roster we got to talk about.
Yes,
Dom
sir.
and I did have some conversations here. We do have 25 offensive players on here, 25 defensive players, along with 3 special teams players off the top. So let's do this, Dom. We'll go little by little. We're going to talk about our quarterback selections, and we'll highlight the areas that you and I have different. Now, Tyrod Taylor, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback 1 and 2, those are the only quarterbacks both of us want to carry. I think we're going to IR Jordan Travis. Are you thinking pretty much along the same lines here?
Yep. And if somebody reverts to the P squad, for me, it'll be Martinez.
Okay. So I do think Martinez will be the practice squad quarterback as well. I think saving that roster spot is all the meaning in the world because I'd rather keep an extra defensive lineman or an extra offensive lineman or someone that'll help us go to a championship as opposed to a quarterback 3 that I'm just hoping is going to turn around and hand the ball off to Breece Hall anyway. All right, let's head over to our running backs. You and I both have 𝐒𝐶 𝐂𝐫𝐦 making the 53-man roster. Now, I'll admit, beginning of camp, didn't think that was actually going to be a thing. I thought he was going to wind up getting cut for Tarik Cohen. Tarik Cohen ends up retiring. I think that sort of reinvigorated my thought process in Izzy. And then seeing him perform the last 2 weeks, I feel like he has shown out, and I think he is deserving of that spot. What are your thoughts on the running back position?
Yeah, listen, I have Izzy making the roster. It wouldn't floor me, like my jaw wouldn't hit the ground if he ended up being a cut. But just based on other positions and whatnot, I thought the best of what was remaining, like I said, the way I look at it, and maybe you do as well, or maybe everyone else, I think there was like 48, 49 spots that were already solidified. And maybe about 7 or 8 guys fighting for those last couple spots. I think Izzy was a no-brainer for me for one of those last couple spots. If he ends up not making it, I wouldn't be shocked. But to me, I think it's more so the fact that this is roster protection, right? Because if you expose Izzy, I'm pretty sure he gets claimed. Whereas there's other guys down the road where, that I think you can roll the dice and hope that they'll get pushed through to the practice squad or revert if they choose to. Izzy, I think, is one that's going to get claimed right away. So for me, I don't know if he'll be active many weeks, but I like the idea of having that speed factor in the backfield, somebody who's second year in the offense, definitely growing, definitely progressing. Again, still a young player. So to me, Izzy 𝐂𝐫𝐦 has earned his spot on this team.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Like, we do think he's not going to make it to the practice squad. We heard some rumors today about possibly Dallas and I think 2 other teams that were possibly jockeying for the, maybe making a trade for Izzy. And I'd be fascinated to see what that value is assigned to because we got him, in the 5th round? Is that what it was? Or 4th round? 5th round.
5th round. Yep.
So, what is that value? Do you get a 5th round pick back? Do you feel comfortable with that? Do you want to hold on to the player? Would you trade Izzy if offered anything?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's untouchable to say the least, but I think listen, if you can get the same value that you got for him, if you can get a 5th rounder, I think you have to consider it. If you can get more, I think you really have to consider it because there's enough of those fringe guys. I think that will you can kind of substitute or plop him in now. If he is, hang on, I'm just looking something up real quick. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 𝐂, he would come with an $84,000 dead cap hit. You would in turn free up just under $1 million, $985,000, if he were to be traded. I don't think they're looking to trade him. I don't think they're I don't necessarily think they're shopping him, but I think if somebody came with in what they would term a Godfather offer, I think his spot could be replaced. And to me, that Godfather offer would probably be anything from a 4th round higher, which I don't think you're going to get. I wouldn't do it for like the 7th round, pick swap or anything like that, 6th or 7th. But to me, that doesn't make sense. I think the juice ain't worth the squeeze there. I'd rather just keep him on the roster.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We get to our wide receiver, and this is where we see our first difference on the board. Obviously, the top 3 are all our starters. You got Gibson as punt returner / kick returner / slot. Malachi Corley figures to factor into that as he gets a little further along in his progression. And then I wound up adding Irv Charles because of the special teams component, and you wound up going with Brendan Smith. I don't hate your option whatsoever, and to be quite honest, I like him and Brownlee over Irv Charles in my own sense. I just kind of get this feeling that Boyer is going to have his say and Charles is going to be the pick. But can you explain your thoughts on Brandon Smith?
Yeah, I thought Brendan Smith, listen, in the limited spots that he did get, he just showed up, man. He caught everything that was thrown at him. I think it was 5 for 5 on contested catch opportunities in the preseason. Just something that you like to see. Listen, truth be told, if Boyer has say on the last couple spots, for special team needs, the pendulum probably swings towards, the Irv Smiths of the world. And I could even see them. I could even see them as of Tuesday having 5 receivers. Maybe Smith and Charles, neither of them. Maybe. Now, there's that possibility. We don't know what's going on with Irv Charles, right? We don't know. And the NFL now put in that rule where an IR player can be taken off of IR. If you put somebody on IR, they're not done. They're not done for the season. You can designate 2 guys to come back. I think it's 4 weeks. So if Irv Charles's hip is, kind of still a little bothersome to say the least, maybe they just kind of stash him there. That's a way to sneak somebody else on that maybe we're not talking about now. Maybe that's a way to if you go in with 5, maybe you find somebody that's jostled free from the waiver process and you can snag them or something like that. But yeah, I don't think I wouldn't write Brendan Smith's name in 10, but based on true wide receiver capabilities and abilities, I would prefer him over Brownlee and or Charles.
Yeah, and we're going to get into, as we go throughout this, there's going to be some players that we're going to highlight that may not count towards the 53-man roster, depending on a few different circumstances. So we may end up being able to hold on to more players than what we're currently showing on this list. At tight end, we each have 3 people: Conklin, Ruckert, Yeboah. I don't think Kuntz has shown enough. I don't necessarily know if he's going to actually make the practice squad or not. Is the endorsement of Aaron Rodgers enough to keep him around on the practice squad? And I don't think Fersker ends up making it as a tight end either. Any thoughts on the tight end room?
Yeah, I mean, this was just. I agree with you. I'm ready to write the Zach Kuntz experience and tie him to the next rocket ship that heads over to the moon. It's been nice. Thanks for your. It was a dart throw. It was a 7th round RAS score, darling, and it didn't work out, and that's fine. Ferkser's interesting, but again, with that vested veteran status, he does not have to be protected. You can kind of tell him, hey, we're going to revert you. We're going to call you up. We have plans for you, so on and so forth. So I think that could be in his wheelhouse. I, per se, think that he's probably the best fit out of all those guys to play that HVAC role. I know that everyone loves Ruckert in that, but I don't necessarily see it. I think Ferkser can play that more so a lot better than Yeboah and probably better than Ruckert. So I don't know if he's worth holding a roster spot for, but he's a guy that I could see heading to the practice squad and then being, called up come game day and being activated.
When we move over to tackles, same thing. Our top 5 guys really are only tackles that have been in my mind. Do we have other tackles other than these 5? Were there other guys on our roster that I'm just missing?
Yeah. What is his name? The kid from what's it, Obi Ibu? What's his name?
Well, either way, I like these 5.
𝐒𝐮𝐬 𝐂. 𝐒𝐮𝐬.
𝐒𝐮 does not have an easy name.
Austin Decklis is another tackle. Yeah, I think off the top of my head, those are it. Listen, I think these are cut and dry. Question mark maybe with Max Mitchell. I don't know if they're dead set on keeping a special teams only guy like Earl Charles or maybe Brandon Codrington. Maybe they're willing to expose Max Mitchell. I doubt it. Again, just because of his positional value and his length and his 2 years in the league already, I think he'd be claimed up pretty good. But yeah, I mean, right now I think he's going to be on the roster.
Yeah, Mitchell, correct me if I'm wrong, has a little bit of guard flexibility too, if I'm not mistaken. I think
he does.
So that's like, based on our interior offensive line where we might have had a little bit more concern, that positional flexibility may keep him on our roster. Yeah. We get into the guard side of things, and this is where you and I differ again. So we both have, obviously, AVT and John Simpson as our starters. I wound up choosing Xavier Newman. You wound up keeping 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂. For me, I cringed at the idea of having Newman on the field last year at all. But going into this, not going into this preseason, but through training camp and this preseason, he's just been a dog, hunting down blocks, like looking for someone to hit, and I've really enjoyed watching him play. Obviously, emergency center type situation. And I guess, you know what, I'll pull off the last little bit here for center just so it gives us a little bit more clarity. Wes Schweitzer, you and I both have as the backup center. Both Xavier Newman and 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂 have that guard center flexibility. Hanson's actually taken more snaps at center for us this year, but overall last year he had a bunch at guard. So what were your thought processes on Newman, Hanson, and the interior of our offensive line?
Well, twofold really. One, in the simplest form, I just followed the money, right? Because Hanson has guaranteed money, so you have to take a little bit of a dead cap. It's not much. I think it's $100K. It's not, or just under $100K. It's not a whole lot, but he is the one that has guaranteed money of all these interior guys that we're talking about, between him and Lovu and the young kid 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and so on and so forth, 𝐒𝐻. I think that. But I also know that the Jets brass really, really like 𝐃𝐨𝐦. Now, he's been battling an injury in preseason, so he's another guy that might be one of those 4-week stashes on the IR, and let's cross that bridge when we get there, kind of thing. So, for me, it was just a matter of I went with a name in this spot. I went with a name where I think that they're have been comfortable with. I don't think either of the 4 guys that we talked about, whether it's Newman, Glazer, Laval, or Hanson, are anything to write home about. If they're playing, we're in trouble. But I went with the guy that I know that they have been vocal about liking in the room, followed the money. I guess I chose what I think is the lesser of the 4 evils, if you will.
Fair enough. I'm going to highlight our special teams unit real quick right here because we have the same guys, obviously, Zuerlein, Morstead, Hennessy. Now, I did star Thomas Morstead because there have been situations in the past, most notably last year, where we have cut Morstead because, like you have mentioned, there's the vested veteran status, which means he cannot be claimed on waivers. So the Jets give him a little wink, wink, and a nod. He says, okay, yeah, I'll come back before week 1. Let's hold on to another player that's going to help us moving forward. And that little jockeying of position allows us to hold on to a player, let other teams claim their guys that they're going to claim, and then bring him back and drop another player down at that point when other teams have already made their claim. So it's a little bit of gamesmanship. I really like it. I love that he's able to do that for us. Any thoughts on that potential move from Morstead at all?
Well, I think that could happen. I don't know if Morstead is the guy that's going to happen with him now, just the way his contract's written out. That's a $550,000 cap hit that they take if they do it this year with Morstead. So not that it's huge money, but the Jets being cap strapped to begin with, and holding that, whatever $14.9 million that they're reserving for Reddick, I don't think that he's probably, or that's probably in the cards for him. That could be in the cards for others. That play, just, hey, hang out in the parking lot for a couple of days. We'll see on Tuesday, kind of thing.
So you think it's going to be someone that doesn't have any guaranteed money on their deal? Hey, we're going to bring you back. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I listen. If Rucker, I'll say this. I mean, no, I'm getting ahead of ourselves here. But if Reddick was already in camp, I think that's the Takk McKinley play, 1,000%. I think that's the Takk McKinley play. Hey, hang out. We're gonna, we're gonna bring you back. You're gonna be on the, just gonna go to practice squad. You're gonna be up on week 1. We need to, move some stuff around. I think that really could be. We want to protect our young kids. You don't have guaranteed money, vested veteran status. You don't have to be exposed. Handshake agreement. Bro, hug it out and move it along.
I like it. Zachary Berner saying, Dom, is your mic hooked up? You might be coming through your laptop instead of your microphone.
Check. Let me try.
I got you.
Can you hear me, right?
I got you. Yeah, no, I thought it sounded fine, but maybe it was slightly off. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sound good to me.
Hang on 1 second. Let's see here. That's plugged in. Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right. See? Bam. All right. So edgewise, we both have Haason Reddick on here, but Haason Reddick, if he does not report, can go on a list that omits him from our 53-man roster. We're exempt from his cap until he winds up reporting. So this could be a spot where we save an extra player because of Reddick not showing up. We've got Jermaine Johnson opposite him. Then I think the next 2 guys in the depth chart line would be Clemens and McDonald that would rotate in on that second defensive line. We keep Takk McKinley and Braden McGregor. What are your thoughts on how the edge room looks? Some of your thoughts maybe on Haason Reddick and maybe keeping Michael Clemens. That was a kind of a hot button topic for people for a little bit there.
Yeah, which I don't understand, to be honest with you. Like, to me, I think he's a lockstep no-brainer. He plays a role, He's going to fill a role definitely on the edge and early down, setting the edge. He's definitely more so on special teams where he can probably affect the game in a more positive manner. But, yeah, it's been a wild discourse about Michael Clemens over the past couple days. But for me, he's in there for sure. And like I said, I put Takk McKinley on here. For now, I think that he could be one of those guys that you kind of play that that roster gymnastics with. I think he's earned a spot. I know he's an older guy. I know he's had some issues. He's had some injury issues, but you gotta tip your cap. And I'd probably say he's one of the 2 or 3 guys I think in contention. If you want to name a preseason MVP, his name would be right up there. So he earned it.
Absolutely. His name has popped up throughout training camp, not even just in the preseason games, but it's been impressive watching him kind of reclaim himself. Not to mention, like, with how much success we've seen on this defensive line, like, we know we've, sort of seen that, JFM come out of, the waiver wire, and we've seen, Bryce Huff come in as an undrafted free agent and have success. So to see these additional pieces come in, you got to think it's losing leverage for Haason Reddick to some degree, where it's like, hey, look, we may, like, as much as it would be a huge shot in the arm to get him back, and what could he do in this defensive line? We got other guys that are causing a heck ton of pressure. I mean, we had 6 sacks between the 3 guys, 3 young guys this past week. So very, very much awesome to see. Hype pops in here real quick with a super chat. Thanks so much. He says, Obenezas are exemptions.
Abina Easy.
Man, see that? I'm going to jack that name up constantly. It's not an easy name. Our exemptions for 17th practice spot. Is that like a international player spot? Is that what that
Correct.
is?
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
Very cool. I see Zachary in here. He says, I want to boost the rosters to 55 to make us feel better. Not even just that. We added the extra game at the end of the season. So you would have thought by virtue of just having that additional game, you would be expanding the roster slightly. They are talking about adding an 18th game or potentially a second bye week or something like that, or maybe both of them. So maybe they look at roster expansion at that point, but I completely agree. I'd love to see a little bit more from the roster perspective.
Yeah, and about the edges, before you move on,
Yeah.
we both have Braden McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a guy again that falls in that realm of you have to protect him. You have to protect him because he's going to get claimed otherwise. So if they try to Jason Pinnock him and sneak him and expose him to waivers, I think he'll get claimed. He's just got enough. Listen, he's not flashy, but he's got enough size and length, and definitely enough motor that a team will take a chance on him to develop. And I'd hate to lose that. So he's one of the guys that I really, really would want to keep. You know,
and to
even at the expense of the Irv Charleses of the world, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And to expand on that, we both have Leonard Taylor III. And like those three guys, between Tack and Leonard and McGregor, those three have shown out so much that the potential on our defensive line has really, I think, given fans a little bit more hope, considering where we thought it might have been taken a half step back. Not a full step, but definitely the losses of JFM and Huff and Woods and Jefferson. We thought we'd feel a little bit of it. But I'm liking what we're getting out of Fotu. I like the experiment with Kinlaw. I think that is a worthwhile roll of the dice. I've always liked Solomon Thomas, and then Leonard Taylor with the obviously the first round grade on him going into last college season. If we could tap into that potential here and he can really show out, that's a home run for the New York Jets.
Yeah, no, I agree. Again, if I had to guess, Ryan, I don't think that we're going to be able to sneak all of these guys onto the 53. Like, I just hope Leonard Taylor and Braden McGregor, they figure out a way to get them both on there. Leonard Taylor, not so much. Like, listen, he's still very, very raw. He's still a development. I don't expect him to really affect the game all that much this year. But if you look down the road, and maybe some people don't want to do that. They want to play in the right here, right now mode. But Ron Kinlow's on a 1-year contract, right? Q's got 2 more years. You assume they're going to re-up him. Solly's on a 1-year contract and now is pushing 31 years old. There's not much. Lecky Fotu's on a 1-year contract. So the spot is prime for Leonard Taylor to come in, make the roster, even if he's inactive or even if he plays very limited responsibilities or roles throughout the year. You just kind of take that in and let him kind of learn and soak. Now, listen, he doesn't come flawless. There's a reason he was undrafted. He's definitely got some off the field stuff. There's been questions about his drive. There's been questions about his motor and if he's really got it in him to play every play to 100%. His college film showed that he didn't. There's been questions if he's going to be able to understand or really absorb the entire playbook, which for the Jets players is difficult. So it's a big task, but I don't know if there's a better situation to be in than with the veteran leadership that we have on this team and the defensive coaches, which have shown that they can develop players. So I really want to see Leonard Taylor move to 50.
I see Duncan in the chat has an interesting question. Who is cut if Reddick comes to the active roster? So if Reddick is not counted towards the 53-man, is there a player that we've seen already on our chart that you think would get the axe first, or is it maybe someone that we haven't revealed behind this little box here? What would your thinking be?
So we both put him on the active 53. So in this case, we're leaving somebody off. But if Reddick started the season on the did not report, that would open up one spot. I would probably say maybe Jalen Holmes. If they wanted to bring in another defensive end player, that could be the Irv Charles or 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 special teams spot as well. Those would probably be the 2 avenues, or maybe. Well, I won't spoil it because we're not there yet. But maybe add another defensive position.
Take a look. We'll continue to go through our list here. We'll move over to linebackers. Now, Sherwood, Barnes wind up making the active roster. We don't have Surratt on there. My rationale for that is I think we're going to see a lot more 3 safety looks as opposed to 3 linebacker looks. And to me, that just intrinsically makes linebacker less of a commodity to stack players on. Not to mention the injury history with Surratt does kind of, give me a little bit of pause for concern, but I think 4 linebackers is more than enough. I figure Ashton Davis will probably be in the box or covering up a tight end come game day in that sort of situation. So what was your thoughts on having only 4 linebackers?
It's very similar to yours. I mean, the Jets ran one of the highest percentages of nickel-based defense last year, or 4-2-5, however you want to refer to it. They were one of the teams that ran the highest. I think that you bring a guy like Surratt, if he's your 5th linebacker, or Sam 𝐒𝐲𝐬, do what you did with him last year. Both of those guys reverted to the practice squad and were called up and made active, throughout the year. So not to say that they won't play or they won't have a place on the team, just they won't have. I don't see them. I don't see the need in having a spot on Tuesday's 53 for them. That makes sense.
I concur. Frankie from Flatbush, if you guys didn't see, said we played 80% nickel last year for reference. Great little stat there. Outside cornerback, we've got the same. Our top 2 guys, plus Quantez Stiggers and Jarek Bernard-Converse. I have been tickled pink with both Quantez Stiggers and JBC. The thought of having to lose Reed next year has, since this past offseason, has triggered me into initially thinking first-round pick, gonna be a cornerback, or at least early in the draft, or high priority in free agency, gonna be a cornerback in some capacity. And that has kind of been alleviated a little bit from the emergence of Stiggers and JBC. And even was it the Commanders game? I think it was the Commanders game where JBC had that one long pass given up on him. It was such tight coverage that I didn't look at it as a knock. It was more of a highlight as to how he was playing coverage with those replays that I saw. So I've been very happy with what our secondary looks like right now. What are your thoughts on Stiggers and JBC?
Both exactly what you want. Both, and I'll throw Eccles into that mix as well. I mean, I think Eccles is a lock for the team. We just have him slotted as the backup slot on this chart here. But I think you could feel comfortable to an extent. If something happened, refer back to the Philly game last year. Something happened and we didn't have our either corner, and the backups came in and played admirably. No one thought that was going to happen. God forbid something would happen to Reed or Sauce and they had to miss a game or something like that. I'd feel okay. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with either of these 3 guys taking the field. JBC maybe a little bit less, just because we haven't seen him stay healthy long enough, But the limited action he did take, I think the move back from safety to cornerback, which is his natural position. He was drafted as an outside, a zone heavy cornerback at LSU. I think that I feel comfortable. Where we're at with Stiggers and Eccles and JBC backing this up. Now, again, the health of JBC is a concern. Does he make the roster? Doesn't he make the roster? Does he start on the IR? I'm not sure. I'm going to err on the side of yes, he will. And he's probably our 5th corner.
And then to round out our safety room, we've got Chuck Clark, Tony Adams as our starters, with Isaiah Oliver and Ashton Davis both making the team. Obviously, we brought Ashton Davis back. Contract was up at the end of last year. Loved what we got out of him just from a being around the ball perspective. Guy always seems to make plays, so I love him coming in as that third safety / extra linebackery type of presence. I think that's a really smart move for us. And then Isaiah Oliver just gives us a lot of flexibility, not just from a strong safety perspective, but from a slot corner perspective and from a special teams perspective. So having guys that can wear multiple hats allows you to have more good players on your roster in a season that is absolutely critical for the long duration that is, potentially a Super Bowl run here. So what are your thoughts on the safety positions?
Yeah, I think this is cut and dry. These 4 start. I mean, I know, and I know this factual. The Jets think very highly of Jalen
Mhm.
They're Mr. Irrelevant, if you will. But I just don't see a spot in carrying for safety again. More so, um, it's a position on our defense, the way our defense runs. That's, if you had to tier them in level of importance, it's probably up there as the least important. Which is why Joe Douglas and staff don't ever spend a lot of resources or a lot of cap space to the position as well.
Yeah, safety just hasn't been an area of focus for the Jets. Like our biggest investments have been a third round pick in Ashton Davis, like $6 million, I think, in Whitehead for the last few years, and then a franchise tag on Marcus May. So it's definitely not something that they, naturally hit year after year as like a primary component. So I can definitely see just the starters and backups right here. So this is our
Yeah.
53-man roster. Just to reemphasize, Haason Reddick may not be on the active roster, so that could add an additional spot for us. And then we were talking about how you could have that veteran vested situation where you can cut someone. Dom makes a good point of making sure they don't have guaranteed money on their deal so it doesn't impact our cap negatively. That has a little handshake agreement with the Jets saying, hey, we're going to bring you back in a week. But this allows us to keep and hide and stash one of the players that we didn't think would make the 53 or the practice squad rather.
Yeah.
So
So
Dom,
Ryan,
yeah,
well, I got a question for you. Just say we both have Reddick here. So say Reddick goes and he doesn't report and he's on the non-reports. It doesn't count towards 53 as of Tuesday.
Mhm.
Who's the first guy that you're bringing back? Who's your 50? Who turns into your now 53, number 50?
So I'm gonna go the route of wide receiver, just like you kind of did with Brendan Smith. I think either him or Brownlee, whatever your cup of tea is. I'm not. I don't really
Yeah.
care one way or the other, but I think receiver is looking a little light. Like we got an injury risk in Mike Williams. You got Lazard, who maybe turns into a pumpkin. We don't really know. He's been solid so far this offseason. But we thought he looked okay last offseason, so who knows what we have there. Gibson has a little bit of the dropsies that I don't particularly love, but I think he's going to be involved. Corley, obviously third round draft pick, so we're gonna have him highly involved for the next few years here. But then the Irv Charles situation, I think becomes a little bit easier to hold on to him and then add in another player that you would prefer at the wide receiver position since he's deemed more of a special teams guy. So I think I would probably go with the wide receiver in this scenario.
You would go wide receiver in that scenario. You'd go wide receiver and just keep 10 defensive linemen.
Yeah, because I like the other guys that we have. Like I don't know if Holmes is strong enough for me to want to have an 11th defensive lineman. Like honestly, I probably would have only had 10 if it were not for like the young studs that we just kind of picked up this year. So I think receiver is definitely where I would lean here.
Yeah. I mean, when it makes sense, I just why I ask is because I think me and you are both on the same page, which is I don't know if it's the norm these days, but you don't see an avenue for Brandon Codger, do you?
I think there's an argument for it for sure. I'm a little less so on it just because like I do feel like him and Gibson wind up being slightly redundant from like a kick returner perspective. I guess Gibson has more of an offensive role with us, but then you wind up having like three kind of kick returners that are sort of specially kick returners.
And not to mention Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen, who will also take some run or can get some run as kick returners or punt returners as well.
Yes, exactly. There's just I don't know. I like Codrington. I question how much the preseason vanilla special teams had to do with maybe some of his success, and how frequently you'd want the ball in his hands versus maybe someone that you might deem as a stronger playmaker or something along those lines. Like, how critical do you think it is to have special teams specific guys for this year?
I don't. I don't necessarily see it. I think the new kickoff rule kind of changes a lot. Changes a big aspect of that. Sure, you want to gunner on the punts and stuff like that. But I think that the level going from an Irv Charles in that role to someone like a Brandon Eccles or Quantes Stiggers the the drop, the gap isn't as big. To me, the gap is small enough to justify taking a guy who can play or help the team in other ways, i.e., play a position. I'll tell you, Brendan Codrington cannot. If you watch him play slot corner at all during the preseason, it was pretty bad. And as bad as he was at slot corner, I think Irv Charles is even the worst receiver. So I think it's just listen. I think Codrington played well enough to make the team. It's just that he just happens to be on a team that's really deep right now. I think he'll get I think he'll get a chance. I think he will get claimed if exposed to waivers, but I think there's gonna be a handful of guys that the Jets have that are going to get claimed if or when exposed. I think some of the interior linemen could. I think Codrington could. Maybe there's a chance Brownlee. Somebody takes a chance. Somebody rolls the dice on him because he has propensity for a big play, and he's got it in him. I don't know if he's there yet. Still needs some developing to do. So I think he's a guy that could go. Obviously, if they don't keep Izzy, I think Izzy can go. The interesting one is Eric Watts, another one of the young kids, another one of the UDFAs. Kind of on the fence if I think he'll get claimed or he'll slip through. I personally think he's right now miscast. I think he would probably be better as a 5-tech defensive end and an odd front. I think he would do really good at that role. So maybe there is maybe there's a spot for him in the NFL somewhere else. If not, I hope to keep him here. Because the more young kids to develop on the defensive side, the better, because our coaches know what they're doing.
So, guys, let us know what your thoughts are in the live chat here. We'll pull up some comments as we go through. Frankie from Flatbush saying, just looked it up. Big Q is signed for this year plus 3 more through 2027. I had to pull up his contract just so I had it in front of me because I wasn't too sure what it was offhand.
You know what? And that does make sense. I know I said 2 more years after this, but it does make sense that he signed last year, but last year was the last year of his deal.
Correct.
4 years. Yeah. So that makes sense.
So his guaranteed money goes through next year, and then he's got no guaranteed money after that. But he has cap hits this year of $20.4 million, next year 21.6, then 26.6 and 30.4. You would think that probably next year or 2026, where they start to play around with the money, and he's not going to have a $26 million cap hit in a year that we're expecting to hit a lot of dead cap. Quinnen should be on this team for a long time. He's only 27 years old.
Yeah.
So he's got a few years. He can play through the end of this contract and be at 31. So really not too bad.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not trying to jump the gun too far, but 2026 is going to be an interesting one because that's when Rodgers' big cap hit hits. And, that's when you'll probably be in the first year, fingers crossed, of an extension for Sauce and Garrett Wilson and all those guys, AVP and Jermaine Johnson and Breece Hall. If you figure out a way to keep all these guys, 2026 is going to be a bear. God bless you.
No, thank you. So one thing I think to consider now, correct me if I'm wrong. So Sauce was 2022. So you got 22, 23, 24, 25, the 5th year option. So that is big money. 5th year option would be that 2026 year. If we sign those guys to an extension, I guess you could drop that and give them a lower base to try and save some money. But 2026, like you mentioned, it's going to be tough. There's not a ton of guys on the roster, and we got a lot of big money to dish out, probably starting this offseason.
Yeah, the 5th year option for Sauce, I don't know what it was this year for cornerbacks. But isn't it based? It's actually not by position. It's based on
slotting.
What you've done. Yeah, it's slotted. So it's going to be, for Sauce, it's going to be very, very big.
Let me see if I could find contracts, 5th year option projections. Okay, so this is for the 2021 class. There's 4 different 5th year options for you guys that are maybe not aware of this. There is the basic 5th year option that every first round pick is offered, and the team has to decide after year 3, before year 4, if they're going to exercise that option. Then there's the playing time option, where you have to play 75% or greater in the in 2 of their first 3 seasons. And then there's the one Pro Bowl or more than one Pro Bowl fifth-year option, which is something that I've brought up in regards to Garrett Wilson and his frustration level given playing with Zach Wilson the last 2 years. If you think Garrett Wilson could have been a Pro Bowl level wide receiver, well, for his slot, you're going from a, I guess it's based on quarterback. It's slotted, fifth-year option-wise based on.
In 21, Patrick Surtain would have gotten the multiple Pro Bowl selection, and that would have been 19-8. So you got to figure it's going to go up from there. So let's just say 23, 24. That's for him. Yep. And then Garrett is a wide receiver.
You're looking at like 12 million, 13 million maybe, like for the base fifth-year option. Like that's a lot. It's like $6 million, $7 million is the difference in that year because the Jets had Zach Wilson at quarterback and not someone that can get Garrett Wilson the ball.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. There's going to be a lot of tough decisions to be made, right? A lot of tough decisions to be made.
It's a good problem to have. We haven't been in this situation much, right? Like it's usually like, oh, we need this like undrafted rookie to start and be like a semi-competent player for us to have a halfway decent chance of maybe making the playoffs. Like, no, we got a bona fide studly team, and it's nice to see us have these struggles.
And we don't have to strip it down to the studs and rebuild again. We've already done that a gazillion times. Let's see if we can sign some of these guys long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Roger F says, Ryan, never get attached to a player. They are like cars. They come and go. Yeah, no, I understand that. I would say if I get attached to players, it's usually someone that I feel like is probably going to be here for a pretty long time. I was head over heels for Sauce. I was head over heels for Braylon Allen. I'm going to stick to my guns. Those are my guys for the next little bit. As far as like back end guys, if there was someone that I would be pulling more for than maybe, some of our highlighted players, it's got to be Takk McKinley for me. I would love to see this guy like finally recognize his potential, have some success here, and then maybe be that like, wow, these guys gave me a chance. I want to stay here. I don't think he's ever going to get a contract that's going to break the bank necessarily, but to be able to replace maybe someone like a Michael Clemens or a Solomon Thomas, someone on that defensive line that, we're going to be losing people. Javon Kinlaw as an example of one, like $7 million this year. We're not going to re-sign him next year. Hopefully we get a comp pick from him, and one of these young dudes winds up popping into there. Is there someone that you think is on our roster right now that you think you might be attached to that maybe you shouldn't be attached to because it may not last long?
Well, listen, last year it was, oh my God, Trey Dean was everyone's fan favorite, right?
Yep.
And then Trey Dean didn't make the 53, and everyone was up in arms. And guess what? He passed through waivers. He was on our practice squad. They got picked off our practice squad or joined Kansas City after the year, and now he's out of the league. So I think we have to temper expectations that all these young guys are going to be on the 53 or stay with us the whole year. If I had to choose one, I'd probably say Braden McGregor. He just, I think me and Will Parkinson are the two co-captains of the, Braden McGregor fan club.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the guy that I just, I've liked the whole process. I like the film that he put out in Michigan. He wasn't a full-time starter, which is probably why he went undrafted. He's got a limited athletic upside. Wasn't a full-time starter. Didn't put a full-time number, but he's the kind of guy that I think and this might be the kiss of death, the jinx, but he reminds me so much. Just so much of the guy, whether it's because of the tattoos or the length. He reminds me so much of the kid from the Raiders.
Max Crosby.
Max Crosby, I could think his name. Reminds me so much of Max Crosby. And listen, I'm not comparing his game right now to Max Crosby, but same thing. Max Crosby was a later round draft pick, worked his way up, busted his ass, this, that, and other thing. That's the kind of effort that I know Braden McGregor will get. Will they ever get to Max Crosby level? No, I'm not saying that for sure, but I'm going to root like hell that he does.
We got Modine in the chat. You can just go kick some rocks. Get the hell out of here, Modine. You and your Bills fanness, all that good stuff. Is this a list of all the bums that will be cut? Why? Because you want some good players on your team? Ha ha! Jerk. Frankie from Flatbush coming in. 49ers have announced that general manager John Lynch will address the media on Wednesday. I would imagine he's going to field a bunch of questions about Aiyuk's availability / contract and Trent Williams not availability, but really just contract situation. The Niners are 3-6 without Trent Williams, including 0-2 last year. Purdy has 2 interceptions in each of his 2 games without Trent last season. So if he's a no-go for week 1, the Jets licking their chops.
So that's a good question. Knowing the positions that they play, knowing the players themselves, and knowing that neither of them have practiced at all in training camp, you have to choose one to miss the game against us week 1. Which one do you choose?
Man, if you're talking about if I would rather have Aiyuk or Trent Williams?
Miss the game, correct.
I would probably prefer Trent Williams.
To miss the game.
Yeah, I think so. As much as like I don't like Aiyuk because he's such a lethal weapon, I feel like having a less than perfect tackle, because you're talking about like arguably the number 1 tackle in the league right now in Trent Williams. And now a young quarterback in Purdy has to continually think about Jermaine Johnson or Will McDonald or, whoever coming off the edge and hitting him from his blind side. So for me, I do think Trent Williams would be the option. I hope both of them miss it, honestly. But if you had to pick one, Dom, which one would you choose?
Yeah, no, like you said, I hope they all miss. I hope they both do. But I would probably choose not having to face Trent Williams also, just because I think he's better than Aiyuk. However, I also think that it'll probably take him a little bit more time to ramp up and get into game speed.
Mm-hmm.
So he could be a little bit more tired and winded and all that stuff. So it's a tough question. But listen, I've had this talk with others, Ryan. Like, there is no shame in my game, Cal. Like, I'm fine if Aiyuk missed the game. I'm not all that sorry that they don't have Dre Greenlaw. I hope the safety, Kufunga, it starts on PUP. I hope Christian McCaffrey calf bothers him. He doesn't get full run. Like, there's no shame. Like, I want to win, and I don't need to beat the best, claim on the best. I just need W's.
See, I was very much hey, you know what? I would like to beat them at their best because it's something we could beat our chest about. And it's not like, oh, well, you got to play the 49ers without Trent Williams and you got to play him with a banged up Christian McCaffrey. That stance has since changed. I just want the W, and I don't care. Yeah, we'll beat them twice.
All those teams that got to beat us with Tim Boyle and Chris Streveler and whomever else playing quarterback and the corpse of Joe Flacco before he was rejuvenated in Cleveland. Like, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad at all. And I'd be more than happy to play San Francisco week 1 in San Francisco on Monday night with and not their full complement of players. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
I put a poll question in the chat. Which would you prefer to miss the 49ers game, Trent Williams or Brandon Aiyuk? You guys can vote on that. We'll give you the results here in about 10 minutes. Let's see. Go back up this way. Go through a few more. Is FSU not playing well, meaning Jordan Travis is an amazing quarterback? I'm just going to say yes. Yes. Yeah, 100%.
I will keep my opinion on Jordan Travis myself.
You shut up, Tom. I will eject you.
He's a Jet, and I root for him. I root for him now.
David Hall says, is it possible that Lazard can restructure his deal? He can. He's got guaranteed money this year, but I think the argument is probably more so you don't really want to. Like, let's give ourselves the out after this year if we want it, and you think you can upgrade. The whole point of getting him here was to get Aaron Rodgers here, and I'm okay with cutting bait on a $10 or $11 million receiver next year.
Yep, I agree. Wholeheartedly.
Says Jet fans are looking down on Gibson, but overhyping Corley, in my opinion. No, I don't think so. I think it's more so that Corley's a draft pick in the 3rd round, and the reality is that we don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Gibson, while he doesn't have like many drops from the receiver standpoint, he did have some issues fielding punts last year during training camp and during the season last year, and I think that's more my concern. Like, I'd almost rather just a punt returner like a Braxton Berrios that just I know is going to catch the ball every single time in a fair catch. Like as much magic as what happened on week 1 last year, I'm still of like the opinion, just catch the ball, let the offense go back out onto the field. Don't give the other team another shot. Do you think Jet fans are looking down on Gibson at all, Dom?
No, and to the contrary, I don't think they're looking down. I think too many Jet fans have formed a premature opinion on Xavier Gibson. Like, remember that he's still a young kid. He's in his second year. He has definitely progressed. There's been progression in his game as a wide receiver from last year to this year already. You could see it in camp. He's a guy that Aaron Rodgers was looking to when he's been on the field. I mean, minus the time he missed with the calf, but he's running more, a more nuanced route tree, not just running, sticks and drags. He's, taking vertical shots, and Aaron Rodgers is praising him every way along the avenue. So I think he's legitimately going to be, a viable third/fourth option at the wide receiver position for us. And I think he's going to play a bigger part in the offense than he will on special teams. I'll say that.
Rusty Spooner comes in and says the 2025 draft class has really good tight ends coming out, especially Luke Lackey from Iowa. Dom, you think Lachey? Oh, see, I don't know how to pronounce words tonight. What are your thoughts on the tight end position moving forward for the New York Jets? Conklin's in the last year of his contract. Ruckert, I believe, has 1 year left on his deal following this season. So do you think the Jets look to invest in a tight end early?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've seen you got to take 2025 mock drafts with a very big grain of Mediterranean sea salt, if you will. You gotta take them for what it's worth. But I've seen some with Jets going tight end, even as high as round 1. I mean, there's a kid from Michigan who I think is going to garner a lot of interest. The kid from Iowa is very good as well. Whether or not they take a tight end that high is yet to be determined, because if they were interested in taking a tight end that high, they very well may have just taken Brock Bowers, who was a superior prospect to any of these kids that are going to come out, and they passed on him. So it's going to be a position they're going to have to address one way or another, whether it's the free agent route or it's through the draft. I don't know if Conklin and Ruckert are the future. I'll say that much.
I feel like you might be able to get Ruckert because it's his hometown team, maybe on, some degree of like a backup contract, unless someone offers him like a full-time role elsewhere. I think we could bring him back. Conklin, I thought, would be one of the guys that would restructure to align his contract with Rodgers for 1 additional year, and then he'd be gone. So I think I could see that play out in a similar way this offseason. Skipperoo says, watching Zach Wilson go crazy in preseason kind of says it was more coaching than player. Sean Payton is guru. Woody should have gave him $1 billion to coach us. So I got to see Zach Wilson. I got to see him throw 200 some odd yards, have 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. And I was like, wow, that's great. I hope he starts week 4 because I want to throw some red meat to these dogs. I don't give 2 shits about Zach Wilson. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think it was more on coaching? Do you buy the Zach Wilson love going on in Denver?
No. I think listen, did he play well that last preseason game? He did, and it's not to say that the kid's void of talent. We know that he's talented. We know that it's in there. He's had those flashes with us. Do you remember the second half of the Pittsburgh game? His second, whether it was rookie or second year. Do you remember the Kansas City game last year? Do you remember, there's flashes in there. And guess what? He flashed against, a bunch of guys who are going to be bagging groceries, where he should flash. So I wish him well. I can't let Zach Wilson kind of intrude my brain any more than he has over the past 2 years. That ship has sailed.
You are a better man than I am, John C. I want you to know that. Boys and girls, we have reached the end of our show. Our poll question was a resounding 86% Trent Williams is who people would prefer to miss the game comparatively to Aiyuk. So very interesting to see that. Boys and girls, if you have not done so already and you're interested in coming to the Talkin' Jets group by week 4, Jets Broncos, We have 100 people coming out. We're going to have a rowdy good time. We're looking forward to it. Tickets are pinned in the live chat. We got a handful left, so make sure you get those before they are gone. Dom, any last words for our crew out there?
13 days until we kick off, right? 13 days until we kick off. So the question is, we have so many Monday night games this year. What happens to our show?
I don't know. We had discussed possibly about doing like some kind of Monday night thing for just Monday night games in general, but I don't know what we're going to have to do. I definitely won't be doing this when we have a game on, I would think.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about. I was talking about when we have. I'm not worried about if Seattle plays Pittsburgh or something.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the Jets. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh man, I don't know. We're gonna have to talk off camera because I did not plan for this question. I haven't even. It hasn't entered the thought process yet. I got to figure that out. So
we have 13 days. Let's get Reddick into camp. Let's really go into San Francisco full force and see what happens, and let the cards fall where they may.
I love it. Boys and girls, make sure you hit that like button on the way out. If you want to hang out a little bit longer, I'm going to be going over to the call-in show over on my channel. I'll direct you guys over there from the live chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We're going to see the 53-man roster drop tomorrow, and we got tomorrow's Talkin' Jets panel, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. This is Jets Talk. Signing off. J-E-T-S.